All right, everybody, Mr. G, your student meteorologist at Mississippi State University, with you once again for another weather forecast as we are coming into your Wednesday night here. And we're going to be seeing some thunderstorms across parts of the central and southern plains tonight as we have that storm system moving across the center of the country right now. That cooler weather is going to be moving in to the east from the west, or from the central states to the east. So there's a price to be paid for that cool down that all of you are going to be seeing to the east here, but that's going to involve that severe weather. Where our city of the day is Dallas, Texas, the big D tonight. A beautiful night out there across Dallas. There's the Reunion Tower. Partly cloudy skies right now, and those temperatures are in the mid 70s, but you will be seeing those lightning strikes up here probably about 10 or 11 o'clock tonight. We're going to be looking at those severe thunderstorms. We're going to take a closer look at what we can expect down here across the state of Texas later on tonight as that severe weather is moving down across the plains. So let's take a look at the country, the weather across the rest of the country right now as we talk about the national forecast. So as we move on with the rest of the weather forecast and talk about the rest of the country right now, we gotta have an El Nino this winter. We are in an El Nino situation right now, and that El Nino is going to be quite strong. One of the stronger El Ninos that we've seen, and we're gonna be talking about the temperature forecast or departures from average that we could see this winter with this particular El Nino, and we're going to be seeing it cooler than average down across the south and over across the southwestern U.S., so the desert southwest and into Southern California. We're going to be seeing those temperatures on average cooler, and it's not to say you won't have warm spells. And up north, you can see, look at this, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the northern plains is going to be about 40%, a good chance of being above average, well above average, so a lot higher than average. So a warmer winter on par for the Northeast, the Great Lakes, and the Upper Midwest, as well as the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see a warmer than average winter as well. But that doesn't mean there won't be cold spells or cold snaps. It doesn't mean there won't be any cold weather. It just means in general and on average, more times than not, it's going to be warmer than average across the northern tier of the country and cooler and wetter than average across the south. So El Nino is a welcome change for me, but not every time there's a guarantee that there's going to be less snow, because I've seen it here in Minnesota where we've had El Ninos and we've still had a lot of snow. But we're going to talk about that snowfall forecast, and here is our El Nino, our typical impacts, and those typical impacts include much wetter weather along the southeast and the mid-Atlantic and along the Gulf Coast, and then out here across the southwest where it's going to be wetter than average in California. Me growing up in Southern California, I became familiar with El Nino back in 1982 and 1983. I was a small boy, and I remember the heavy rains that swept across California. The first time I ever seen a tornado in LA was back in 1983 in the winter, and we had a super strong El Nino. We could repeat some of that this year with a particularly strong El Nino. This one could go down in the record books as we've seen a very strong signal for El Nino and down in the Nino 3 and 4 zone. So we have been tracking and monitoring that El Nino developing, and it's going to be very strong this winter. And typically it's milder with much less snow across the Great Lakes and the Upper Midwest. So we're going to see less snow for Chicago and Minneapolis and Milwaukee. Drier winter this year and a little bit warmer as well. So El Nino is a welcome thing to my ears. When I hear El Nino, excuse me, I perk up. It's like, hey, it's going to be less snow. I remember back in 2012, we had an El Nino, and I was living here in Minnesota then. And I remember we had a couple of snow events, but the snow was all melted in early February. So late January, early February, all the snow had melted away. And by mid-March, we were in the 80s. It was fantastic. I just love El Nino. It's not always good for everybody, but for me up here, it's wonderful news. I'm so excited, and I hope that this winter it pans out as far as the warmer weather. I know it leads to more nor'easters in the northeast, so hopefully we won't have too many of those. Most of those will stay offshore with the worst of the rain and snow and winds, but bring on that warmer and drier winter for a change for us here. Now here is the forecast. I'm going to step off the camera so that you can see these particular cities here, that you can see the average snowfall for places like Boston and New York City. They can pick up anywhere from 49 inches up there in Boston to 23 inches as far south as Philadelphia, and 44 for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 95 inches typical for Buffalo, New York. That's because you have that lake effect over there. But the snowfall for 22 and 23 was the La Nina. We had a very strong La Nina. Dead snow was almost non-existent last winter. They couldn't buy a snowflake in like New York City, Philadelphia. Boston didn't even get any appreciable snow till winter was just about over. But here is our prediction for this year, where we can see up to 44 inches in Boston. New York can pick up to 24 inches is possible up in Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh we can see up to 36. But look at that, 70 to 85 inches is your forecast for Buffalo, New York. And with them, those nor'easters is going to be more common this winter, and more lake effect snow as well. So we could see an increase in that lake effect. In the Midwest, we saw our average snowfall in Chicago is 38 inches, 51 inches here in Minneapolis, and 18 down in Kansas City. But check out Denver and Salt Lake City, right about 50 inches each. But last winter, we had a tremendous snowfall here in Minneapolis, 90. It was a miserable. I was so pissed. And the commuting every morning and in the evenings, and it's snowing. I mean, it was awful. It was awful. I tell you, awful. But this year, we're expecting 33 to 40 inches. I hope it's less. I hope that's overshooting it. 33 to 40 inches. The last El Nino, we had 22 inches, so that's what I hope we can see again this year. And I hope we can get it done early instead of later. But Chicago, look at your 20 to 30 inches. So Chicago may be about average for this with this El Nino, but we're definitely going to see that decrease here across the Twin Cities. I think will be the most significant area as far as the effects of El Nino will be felt here in Minnesota. So again, you can see how that El Nino impacts those weather conditions. Here is our snow departures that we expect this winter. Very significant. We're going to be about 49 inches and lower. So we're going to be lower than average, much lower than average here across the upper Midwest. But if you see here across the South, it's going to be higher than average where those blues are. Look at the blues here, 125% above average. So we can see about half of the snowfall that we typically see here in the Twin Cities. And check out the Pacific Northwest. So the Northern Rockies and the Cascades are going to be anywhere from 33% to 50% below average as far as those snowfall expectations are this winter. So let's see exactly how that we're going to watch together and see how El Nino impacts the weather across America this winter. So right now, this is what we're looking at. We have a lot of moisture down here across the South, the Gulf Coast and the Southern Plains and the Ozarks. A lot of moisture, a lot of warm air, still in the 80s and 90s. There is our area of low pressure just across the Canadian border, but we have a nice trailing cold front. That's that leading edge of that much cooler air coming down out of the Rockies and from the western U.S. and the Pacific Northwest. That's that leading edge along this cold front right here that's going to sweep across the Great Lakes and over toward the eastern U.S. as we head into a weekend. But we're going to see record highs. We saw record highs possible today. We can still chase down some of those highs across the east tomorrow for your Thursday as well. We can chase those record highs across the eastern Great Lakes and the Northeast. And we're going to see a freeze likely coming this weekend. Our first winter freeze across the northern Rockies and some of the high plains out there in Montana and Wyoming. So if you're in Big Sky, or if you're in Shelby, or if you're in in Casper, not Casper, but yeah, Casper, or any of the more flat places out in Wyoming and Montana, in the western plains, you're going to see, or eastern plains, you're going to see a freeze likely in your area this weekend as that front has passed through and is going to be sweeping off to the east. So we're going to see a big change in the weather pattern as we head into the weekend. So by the time we get to Sunday, that cold front is swept all the way across the country. There it is, moving out over the Atlantic. There is our low pressure there up in Canada, and we have our trailing cold front, that leading edge of that cooler air, cool and dry. So a very dry weekend for most of the country, very cool, downright cold in some places far to the north. So here in Minnesota, we're going to see some temperatures in the 30s. Some areas going to see 20s up in Montana and Wyoming. Going to see some 20s, maybe some teens as well in the overnight hours. So going to be very chilly and very cold out there. Certainly starting to feel like fall across the eastern U.S. It's already been feeling like fall and maybe even winter across parts of the western U.S. So they're actually going to begin to warm up across the west as things cool off in the east. So we're going to see a flip in the pattern where a high amplitude ridge is going to build in out to the west with that trough digging in across the east. Here is our Sunday temperature forecast. Look at those 50s and 60s across the eastern U.S. Our lone 80 will be down here in Dallas, Texas, with everybody else are going to be cooler. Maybe a 70 there for Kansas City, but the rest of everybody is going to be in the 60s. Maybe you might sneak up to 70 down in Memphis on Sunday. So late in this week, tomorrow, so Thursday and Friday, Friday into Saturday, we're going to be seeing those overnight lows dipping down. Good sleeping weather here across the eastern U.S. and the Great Lakes, especially. Those temperatures in the upper 30s to lower 40s. So excellent sleeping weather for some of you guys to get your fireplaces going, or bundle up under some nice blankets and get your snooze on so you can get you some rest before you go to work the next day. So here we are as we look at that cooler weather moving into the east, and especially the northern tier of the country. It will be more pronounced in the north than down in the south. And as we look at this weekend, we are going to be dealing with your Saturday and Sunday, those low to mid 40s from Minnesota all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia, where we're going to see those overnight lows in the upper 40s. So it's going to be pretty cool out there. That's going to be a nice welcome change for some of you folks where you've been dealing with that persistent heat and humidity and those high heat indexes. For once, you're going to bring down the humidity, and we're going to bring some cooler, more comfortable temperatures. And it might even feel a little bit nippy to some of you. You're not used to that cooler weather, so you might throw your light jacket on or something if you're going out Saturday and Sunday night, so you won't be a little bit more comfortable out there. So we are dealing with some severe weather as part of that package of that cooler weather. This is the price you got to pay in severe weather, especially down here across the southern plains, down through Texas and into Oklahoma, where we're going to be dealing with some very heavy rainfall, some damaging winds and large hail and tornadoes are going to be possible, as well as we have this area of low pressure across Colorado, and that storm system is going to help to fuel those showers and thunderstorms across the central and southern plains. And as we look at that too, we got that hail to deal with, and we're going to be dealing with some very large hail across Texas and Oklahoma. They're used to dealing with golf ball and baseball size hail. You can certainly deal with that situation later on tonight across the Dallas-Fort Worth and down to Houston. And as we look at those thunderstorms, they're also going to be bringing some very, very heavy rain across the central and southern plains and into the Ozarks. So Arkansas, Oklahoma, East Texas, Shreveport, Louisiana. So if you're in this swamplands here, you're going to be dealing with a lot of heavy rainfall, and some flooding could be possible with some of those severe thunderstorms. So again, turn around, don't drive. And if you see a flooded roadway, don't try to drive through it. 4 inches of water can make your wheels lose contact with the road surface, so you can get carried away in a flash flood with just 4 inches of water. So again, please be very careful, especially driving overnight in the dark here. So you can't really tell these things. So these are some of the severe thunderstorms that we're going to be looking at about 11 o'clock tonight through parts of the Ozarks here to Arkansas. We've got Little Rock. They'll be just to the west of your Little Rock area about 11 o'clock. You'll be able to see that lightning from the distance. These storms will pack a lot of lightning with some of these severe thunderstorms in Shreveport as well. You'll also be able to see those severe thunderstorms. Dallas, they're going to be steamrolling you about 11 o'clock. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, you'll be in the clear by the time you hit 11. So you'll be seeing those severe thunderstorms moving across north central Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas. So guys, get ready. Now those severe storms will also spread down to the south Texas. So down near Houston, Galveston, you're going to be dealing with those severe thunderstorms as well. That's going to be you're going to have a nice little thunderstorm cluster, what we call a mesoscale convective system. So a nice MCS is going to develop with an area of surface low pressure down there, and the influence off of the Gulf of Mexico is going to help to create those self-propagating thunderstorms across southeastern Texas tonight, and that's going to be something you see more toward the morning hours. So the morning commute could be kind of sloppy down across the Houston area and into western Louisiana, like Monroe and things like that. And you're going to be dealing with tricky weather conditions tomorrow as you traverse and manage those severe storms in the morning. So here is your rainfall forecast through midweek across the southern plains, and we're going to be looking at many areas picking up at least an inch of rain, especially around Oklahoma City, and in Dallas, Texas, from 1 to 2 inches, and we can see that 1 to 2 inches down here in Houston, 2 to 3 up there in the Ozarks. So if you are in Arkansas and southern Missouri, you can pick up that 2 to 3 inches of rain with some of those heavier thunderstorms right there along the Red River Valley between Texas and Oklahoma. So here we are as we talk about the Northeast. So the Southern Plains is not the only one seeing some wet weather. Now we have the other end of our story where our centers of low pressure will be located here across the Northeast, and that's going to bring some soaking rains to New England again. So you guys really don't need any rain because you had the remnants of Tropical Storm Ophelia and other tropical systems that nearby dropped rain for a solid week straight across New York City that led to that dramatic flooding. But more heavy rain is going to be expected tonight and into your weekend, so we can see excessive rainfall once again as our Midwestern storm makes its way toward the Northeast and into New England. That storm is currently the storm that's bringing that severe weather down to Texas, and we saw those severe storms across parts of the central and northern plains as well. So here we are as we see for Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be looking at a line of rain showers moving across the Northeast and towards the big cities of New York City and Boston, you're going to be very wet on your Saturday and in the morning hours there. Again, on Sunday, we're going to see those showers start to move on out of there, and they got low pressure. You can see it wrapping on up there. It's going to be winding up through Boston and up through Bangor, Maine, and that's going to head on out towards Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Let Canada deal with that stuff for a little bit, because New York City and the East Coast, they need a break from all that torrential rainfall. So they're going to get that break and a little bit cooler weather as well. Here are some of the rainfall totals that is expected across the Northeast. So Erie, Pennsylvania, and Buffalo, we're going to look at 2 to 3 inches down in western Pennsylvania. But if you're in New York City, about another inch of rain, 1 to 2 inches up in Berlin, 2 to 3 inches up in Burlington, Vermont. So if you're in the higher elevations of Vermont, New Hampshire, as well as in Maine, you can see higher rainfall totals up in the mountains there. So more wet weather for the Northeast and New England. That is your weather forecast. My name is Mr. G. You're a student meteorologist. I just completed my exam, so now I'm happy and I got a little bit of energy. I thought I'd hook you guys up with a weather forecast today, and I will get you another one tomorrow, and we're going to monitor how things change, and we're going to track El Nino and let you know what we expect and see how it pans out. Thank you for watching me. Leave your likes, comments, and subscribe to both YouTube and TikTok. Bye-bye, guys.